and it's like when it was in Spanish that like some people were just rooting for very specific things to happen, and like I have a voice message that was like, I hate you, bitch, what the fuck, and it's like, I love you too, bye bye. But that's life. Life is not always fair, but hopefully seeing the unfairness on it can kind of like, like click a light bulb. Even when I wrote this for the first time, there were a lot of things that I put in the book that I didn't realize were like not fair even to the main character. Like when I started therapy, I kept saying things like this happened to me, but it was because I was doing X, Y, and Z, and my therapist was like, "Joe, that's not it. Let's repeat that it's not your fault because it wasn't." And when I started editing, like the big edit, I was like, this is narrated as if it was her fault because I had it
Yeah.
so internalized that, again, removing myself from it and everything really helped me out. But some things did need to happen for her to face certain consequences, which is why there's a trial. Which that's like a new scene from like after I it became Alice in Wonderland, and it was just because of one of those things of like, oh shit, this is meant to have a fucking trial. It's Alice in Wonderland, and there's a trial there, and it makes sense that this thing is shown. The things that happened within the trial didn't change. It was just like a fade to black kind of moment, and then the next chapter was like the resolution. So yeah.
Yeah. And well, how does translation work in terms of a whole manuscript? Was it a challenge to put it
Pain
into
in the
English?
ass.
Yeah.
Um, well,
I
it.
can only imagine.
Oh my god. I am obviously not a professional translator, and I unfortunately don't have the budget to pay for a professional translator. So it was kind of rewriting the whole thing. A lot of things cannot
Yeah.
be like translated textually, and the way that I write, especially the way that I write in Spanish, is like with very long run-on sentences and a lot of metaphors and a lot of things that maybe don't work that well in English because English is like a more concise language. So I try to keep that like feeling of like the run-on sentences and everything by being very careful with the how melodic the paragraphs and everything in the book are, and making sure that if I have something that is extremely long, the next couple of things are going to be very sharp, and they kind of like keep that rhythm and that balance. I think what one of the things that helped me the most was that I was just rewriting slash translating before changing anything, and I started editing only after the entire thing was like completely translated so I could focus in one thing at a time. And I was going to say it
Okay.
took me longer, and in theory took me longer, but like knowing that I basically put out this book in 6 months, I don't think it's like that much longer. And it was very rewarding to actually like read the whole thing in English and not having to go back and forth in my brain with changing languages. I do admit that, especially for like the more surreal aspects of the book, if I wanted to add like a big scene or something, sometimes I would get short on words on English, and I had to first write that scene in Spanish. And then when I
Hmm.
had what I wanted, transform it into English. But like 95% of the book, it was just like a very like, I just did as much as I could with what it was, and then I just did the edit, which is why I had a lot of people ask me like, you had the shit first in Spanish, why are you just not releasing it in Spanish at the same time? And like they don't realize how much it has changed with the whole translation and editing aspect of it. I would have to retranslate everything back to Spanish, which I want to do. I just don't know when I will have time because we are doing a lot of stuff at Storyforge in the moment. We're releasing a book probably next month, and I'm also doing most of the thing.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, but it's very rewarding.
Yeah. I like how you you bring about the differences in like storytelling between Spanish and English because I've read I haven't read in Spanish, but I've read like works in the Latin American literary tradition in English. And the surrealism is like a storytelling that is not very present in like American literary tradition.
Yeah,
But I think it's so powerful because it teaches you how to really like tell a story with images. And
I
like,
love that.
yeah, yeah. Can you speak a little bit to kind of how you kind of keep the surreal and like the beauty of the Spanish text into the English?
Let's see if I can find like a passage that would help me with that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, maybe not this one. This is too far into the book. Too far, too far. Okay, I'll do like one of the first like surreal like parts. Okay, this is a great example because I talked about it in therapy. This was originally the beginning of the book. I just added chapter 0 afterwards, but I'm gonna read like a page and then try to dissect it a little.
Yeah.
The tip of my tongue caresses my upper lip, and I smile because I know the inside of my mouth is not bleeding yet. The night is off to a good start. With a smile and my eyes closed, I slip into the crowd. Here, feeling things is much more important than seeing them. Everything seems familiar and utterly alien at the same time. I can't remember how I got here, but I don't think it matters. For all I know, I could have fallen down a giant hole and ended up in the center of the earth. I think that's like a pretty good indication of like the style of narration, especially in this. The black chapters are the ones that
Oh,
are like, I know it's gorgeous. I'm very proud of them. These are the ones that are in new, which is the Wonderland aspect of this, and the chapters that are not in that place just have a more quote unquote where here mundane illustration
yeah.
because it's like the boring reality. No, my light turned off and it was working so good. So a lot of these things are almost like mm, me trying to dream the story more than write the story.
Yeah.
I am someone that I experience the world through all of my senses to the point that the visual aspect of the world sometimes takes like a second place. And smell or taste or all of those things take a more important place. It's kind of the way that my brain is wired, and I think it's the reason why when I was little and I used to have all of this like hallucinations, it was more like a tactile feeling, or I would hear things or stuff like that. And even now my light fell. Even now, for a long time, I even thought I had like aphantasia because I couldn't really picture things in my brain very well. So I think that helps, but it's kind of just like trying to be really like into the scene and be like, what would it feel to actually be there? What if I was, for example, in this case, dreaming on something that has been already happened, but I just gained consciousness of what's happening? Well, maybe there's something in my mouth. What is in my mouth? Am I listening to something? Why is something dripping from my forehead? I don't care. I'm having a good time. Even though someone's looking at me kind of weird and his eyes are glowing, the jingle, 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 the music sounds so good that I am going to choose to ignore this. And all of
Yeah.
those things, I think, is like what makes it so vivid because
Hmm.
it's a little bit more how we as human beings are experiencing the world. How would a person, like if you're like in a specific sense to experience the world, how would a person that doesn't have that sense experience the world? Like we all do it differently, but what if it's someone that is even more different than what you have imagined? I like there's a shit ton of blind people in the world, and they experience the world in very vivid ways by just existing. So, and I a lot of like narration that I have seen in books is only like the visual aspect of stuff. And sometimes when people talk intonation and stuff, like, what if you were to take away that visual aspect? What do you feel? What do you taste? Like this girl's dancing. What if she's tasting her own sweat? It's salty. And there's a literal part in here that's like salty, salty like tears, salty like sweat, what type of salty it is. And it's like this kind of like conversation she has with herself. And I maybe I don't know. It came a little bit second nature to me, maybe because I grew up with like Gabriel Garcia Marquez and magical realism and all of those wonderful things that I love Gabriel Garcia Marquez so much. Isabel Allende
Yeah.
also is a great example of it, and I do have, I guess, the advantage that I had when I was growing up, like teachers that were absolutely in love with literature, like literature teachers that were just committing to just speak about stories with their heart, to the point that I would like, I was a bullied kid, so I would talk a lot with the kid teachers. Like we would exchange books and stuff like that, and I would try to write stories, and they would encourage me. And I think those like foundational moments of my childhood of like them also choosing books that were interesting and not like the just a established curriculum of like, even when we read Don Quixote de la Mancha, like it wasn't like forcing us to just consume this book. It was a, hey, this is a very long kind of thing. I'm going to assign each one of you a chapter, and then you guys are going to explain the chapters to each other. Like it encouraged me to be able to sit down, ingest it, tell it, and then also fall in love with the thing and fall in love with the way that other people explain the same characters that I was seeing. Uh, I read a lot of like great like books that were like very inspiring for me, both for school and for like personal like enjoyment. Peter Pan and Peter Pan Scarlet were like my absolute favorites too, and they were asked for me to read when I was like in fifth grade. And look at me writing a Peter Pan retelling on the side now. So I
Oh,
don't know.
that's cool.
Yeah, thank you. All of those things, I think, also help me kind of like find my voice into what I enjoyed in other places, and then see how I can recreate it with like the uniqueness that I can bring.
Yeah, and with the book being so closely tied to Bo and how like Bo interprets the world, that's also like a strategy for other writers to kind of pick up on the information that the character is conscious of, um, is character building.
Yes,
It
100%.
shows personality, and then but it also helps develop the world in the reader's mind. And to be able to feel like the sun on their skin and stuff like that, like um and then also I like how you were talking about how like each individual character can interpret different things, but also like if your character's in a subway station, like there are sights and smells and sounds that are unique to just that space.
Yes.
Um, and to kind of capitalize on those the unique settings that you put your characters in. Ah, I love that you also brought up Gabriel Garcia Marquez because when I think about being in a place, um there's almost like no greater sense of place than like 100 years of solitude.
Oh my god, I love 100 Years of Solitude so
and
much.
and so much of that is storytelling through imagery
Yes.
and through patterns and through repetitions and through themes and through surreal in interpretations of reality that, even the reader isn't quite sure of what's
That's the
real or
beauty of
not.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and in reality, as we like to think that everyone kind of experiences the way in a way that others can understand easily, that's not the case.
Yeah, that's so true.
Some people, like, everyone is just a mixture of chemicals, and these chemicals and these organs and everything are functioning differently in each of us. And all of those things, our upbringings, all of these things go into like who we are and, what we perceive from the world in a way that is almost like philosophical. Like, how much can we trust the image of our eye when it's a projection created in our opt on in the back of our head,
Yeah.
and it's just presented to us through these rods and cones? Like, it's interesting.
It is. It is. I love that. It's so true. I love magical realism so much.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it's the most real feeling, because no one's life is just as mundane as like getting up, making toast, putting on their tie, and going to work. Like, there's something going on in there.
Yeah.
So now you've mentioned a couple different projects that you're working on. I wanted to ask you if you also see a big market for your book in Spanish.
I see it. It is a little bit challenging from me here from the States because I would want to reach like the people from Latin America that liked the book. Particularly Venezuela is a little bit sad. I was talking with someone that I know from over there that owns a press there that it's like international distribution wouldn't reach Venezuela, for example. Like I would have to physically ship a box of books to him and him being the person that distributes it. I definitely see that there's a market for it. I think that there was a market for it even before I considered like actually self-publishing this whole thing. I talk about this a lot because it's a very pivotal moment on my author experience, but I will try to be as brief as possible. When I was in Wattpad, I had a contract with Wattpad Webtoon Studios, which was it's different than Wattpad. It's owned like by the same people, but it's like the literary agency part of it. They would take stories and then they would present it to their partners. That is where my PTSD comes in. For multiple reasons, that contract ended in a way that I didn't choose how it had to end. It was just kind of like an emergency exit for me because I was left with no choice. However, knowing that they had reached out to me about the story, particularly in the first place, and knowing that that's literally like that was their job, like study the market and kind of like seeing what it was, and it was in Spanish, and it was when it was in Spanish, and it was when it wasn't Alice in Wonderland. It wasn't as polished. Like I think this product is so much better than what it was at the time. Tells me not only that there's a market for it, but there's like a huge untapped market of people that right now are just kind of like probably with like 5 or 10 books that would feel like these things that they need. And especially in like Spanish, that a lot of the times the trad publishing market in Spanish is just translating things that are originally in English. And it just like trickling down the stuff that maybe was famous 2 years ago over here. Some of them get filtered out to the Spanish speaking market. And this has a lot of Latin American soul on it, in a way that I think it's just like if you know, you know kind of situation because it's not, besides it there being literal like Spanish like phrases and everything, like you see that the way that we kind of relate to people, like we kind of experience the world and the way that like some of the identity struggles and some of the things like people that have gone through like a similar background that maybe I have gone to would be like, oh shit, wait a minute. This is me, that maybe people that have gone like through different life experiences and have a different background maybe wouldn't recognize certain aspects of the story. And I don't know. I think this book is like a very good balance. It's like the perfect like new adult horror book, like quotation marks. Not because the book
Yeah.
is perfect itself, but it's because coming of age is a whole genre trope, whatever, that is very saturated right now when you're a teenager. But I don't think enough people are talking about the transitional aspect of when you are supposed to be an adult and you're supposed to be living life and making decisions by yourself, but you still don't know how to. Like that whole crazy ass 20s situation. I don't see that much, and I don't see that. I see that even less spoken about in the awful horror aspects of it. And I don't see that like in general the English speaking market, so I see it even less in the Spanish speaking market because again things trickle down. And I think most of like 20 something year old stories that are about someone figuring themselves out are like romances or things that are more slice of life and happy ending. And like I had a very traumatizing experience in my 20s, and I think most of my friends did too. So like where is that? So I do
Yeah.
think there's a pretty big market of it, and I think that the more people write about these topics, especially from their own unique ways of experiencing the world, even better.
Yeah. Like I look at it as like a new, as maybe like a pioneer in
Oh fuck, I would love that so much. Ah,
but in like horror into the
yeah,
future because like there's only going to be so many like Stephen King copycats, I guess we can say, that are going to be successful.
so funny. Stephen King for like my entire childhood was like my favorite author, which is
Yeah.
extremely problematic. Okay, I'm sorry I was a child, but I actually have, where is
No,
it? I have
it's
Red Rum tattooed here, and I have Loser Lover tattooed here.
yeah.
And I like it did inspire me to definitely follow my heart on the weird shit. I feel like one of the things that he does good are the short stories. His short stories are way better than like the long stuff. But like, man, like a finger that is growing out of your bathtub faucet and chases you around the house and somehow it works, like that told me, yeah, bitch, you can write about whatever the fuck you want, it will work. Or
Yeah.
like a vending machine that is chasing you. I think I don't remember if it was a vending machine or a washing machine chasing you down the street because it wants to like press you on the floor. I forgot the word. Like that was the whole like light bulb moment that I was like, you know what? I don't have to be generic. I can do whatever the fuck my brain wants. And there's at least one person out there that maybe will enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I do owe that man that. But I'm very happy I was able to
And nothing to
like
take
develop
away from
my,
Stephen King. Nothing.
yeah. I'm very happy that I was able to develop my own voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And the first book I read about writing was by him, so
That made
I
me cry like a little bitch.
yeah, the on writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it teaches you a lot of the fundamentals of just good storytelling. And um part of it is like the teaching on getting into the character's head.
Yeah.
He became what he was because he got into heads of characters that are different from himself. As a middle-aged man, Carrie was like his big like initial hit, and that was about a teenage girl. So as a 77-year-old man now, it might be harder for him to conceive of a teenage girl's life. And I think that's where also like our generational struggles are a little bit
Yes.
different. And I like how you bring in like and you focus on the 20s because like it's at least also in being in the like LGBTQ community, that is a place where a lot of people are only like starting to become themselves.
Exactly.
In a lot of instances, like mine included, middle school, high school was not like who I was. I
Same.
was who I am, but I wasn't who I wanted to be, and I didn't get to experience the aspects that maybe other kids were and learning from and all that. And then all the other complications of just being in the LGBTQ community as well.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I really like how I think came up in a conversation with my boyfriend how the book itself is even more queer than I initially thought, just because of how much about identity it speaks, and about how much about identity the characters struggle in like their own unique ways. And I talk a lot about Bo, and part of like what Bo does is I think it speaks both to my queer identity and also my mental health identity and like my autism diagnosis, which is like extremely recent also, so I had no idea, in like adapting herself and her entire being to the people that she's in at the moment just to fit in, to the point that she kind of doesn't know who she is inside. And other characters do it as well. This Mad Hatter character, Nick, you would see him and you believe, if you kind of don't take the layers of the character, that he's just like party boy. Hey, yeah, they're going to party, they want to party, and then start realizing that like there's cracks that you can see who like they truly are, that just start realizing this is someone that is desperate to be accepted. This is someone that doesn't really know how to engage with people, and that's why is surrounded by loud music all the time. This is someone that maybe was trying to form a connection, and the second that sees that that connection is not reciprocated, since like has no fucking clue how to react, is like shoving it aside and becoming nonchalant about it. And all of the well, obviously like the entire like gender identity aspect of Ray being completely erased by the people around them when they literally just want to be left alone, figure their own shit out, and that's it. Like all of those parts are like pivotal moments of the story that I didn't intentionally make it like, yeah, this is going to be so queer. It just happens because it's the parts of my experience with my identity. Writing this, I found out my sensitivity reader is non-binary. And part like of that was because I wanted to make sure that I was being very truthful and very respectful to Ray's experience. And the more that I explored Ray's brain, and the more that I asked them questions to my sensitivity reader, the more I started realizing things about them myself, to the point that I came out after writing the book like, hey, you guys, I'm gender fluid, because of like how intrinsically everything was related with like LGBTQ experiences that were happening within my brain that still were figuring it out, that I'm pretty
Mm.
sure a lot of us are still figuring out, as you said, in our 20s, because unfortunately, we are not living in a perfect place in which children are allowed to be themselves. And we're only allowed to be ourselves. I mean, there's probably children out there that have very supportive families. That was not my case. Uh, but like we have like this new childhood once we emancipate and we start being able to actually figure out who we are as human beings instead of who we are as a reflection of the environment that we're in.
Yeah, yeah, and it takes a lot to be able to present yourself and to also build yourself up outside of kind of those social structures. So whether it be like family, and then friends, coworkers, like all of these experiences, you know, will develop an identity within them. But are we doing the work to develop ourselves in like a respectful way for ourselves? And
Yes.
I'm happy that your journey in discovering that kind of that sense of peace and understanding was able to also give us a book to read.
Yes, bro.
I'm so excited for you. And to know that you just put this out in June, um, I'm so excited to help you get out there a little bit more too. And I hope we get a lot of people to hopefully
Yes,
buy your book. We'll have it on
please.
the links and
It's
everything.
like, I swear, like, it's so cool. Even to have it as like a piece of something to share to people that go to your house is so cool, because it has so many, this is just me fangirl. Like, it has so many weird shit. Ah, please. Even after the court, no, just kidding. I actually read it, but no. The book also has a reading guide for the people that like to talk a lot, like me, in which I
Ah,
just sat down and like asked the reader questions, as in like, what do you think about this thing, and kind of like reflect yourself. One of them is like, oh, for example, Neil, the Wonderland in this book reflects both mental state and all of her deepest cravings, and it actually changes depending on like the mental state that she's in. So like this question is like, what does Neo reflect to you? Like, what would be your wonderland of like this dark aspects of yourself that would be represented in a physical like place, like in an actual establishment that you can go in and have all of those needs fulfilled. So that is also something that I like to say, because I like, it's what you said, like when books linger in my brain and start kind of like making the wheels turn. And this is my gift for the people that like getting their wheels like turning
ah.
in their brains, to be like, yes, I can interact with this even more now.
I love that. I
So
love
yeah,
that.
buy the book. The book is cool.
Yes, buy Glow Rot, get your wheels turned. I love that phrase. And I'm gonna put all your links to your socials and your website and everything in the link below. And then do you, through your work with Story Forge, do you guys work directly with writers?